Hello everyone, and welcome to another session of Reddit Stories. Consider an HOA Karen so consumed by her desire for authority that she has your vehicle towed from your personal driveway and places a fraudulent $4,800 lien on your home. This all occurs even though you are not a member of the HOA. This is the story of what unfolded. The first post is titled, Legal Advice, HOA Karen had me towed from my own property, asserting she owns it. I'm so furious at this moment that I can hardly type, so please excuse any errors. I am the owner of a charming little house. It's an older brick home constructed in the 1970s on a reasonably large piece of land. Over the past 2 decades or so, a sprawling master-planned community has been developed all around my small street. My home, along with the other 3 on my particular block, is not included in this development. We exist as a tiny island of conventional houses amidst a sea of unappealing, cookie-cutter homes. When I purchased my house, I meticulously reviewed all the closing paperwork, and my attorney verified it. My title insurance is completely clear. I am not, I want to be clear, a member of the Karen Homeowners Association, name altered for obvious reasons. I do not pay any dues. I don't have permission to use their ridiculous pools or tennis courts. Furthermore, I have never put my signature on any document, official or otherwise, or made any agreement with them. The issue stems from the HOA president, whom I'll refer to as Karen. She resides in one of those beige palaces located behind my property and has to drive by my house to exit the neighborhood. She has been a persistent, low-level annoyance since I first moved in. She would leave passive-aggressive notes on my door concerning trivial matters that I'm not even motivated to detail, but they were essentially about things that made my property fail to meet the community's aesthetic in her opinion. I have disregarded all of them, but this morning, she escalated the situation significantly. I stepped out of my front door at 7:30 a.m. on my way to work to find my car had vanished. It was simply gone from my own driveway. My immediate assumption was that it had been stolen. A sense of dread washed over me. I dialed 911. The dispatcher was quite helpful, taking my information before saying, "Sir, let me look at the non-emergency towing logs." She continued, "It appears your vehicle was towed approximately 3 hours ago by Neighborhood Management Towing." I was bewildered. Towed? By what authority? The order was issued by the Karen HOA for a breach of community standards and improper parking on HOA property. I completely lost my composure. I explained to the dispatcher that this was impossible, as it was my private driveway and I wasn't a member of the HOA. Her tone became very formal as she replied, "Sir, if the HOA has an agreement with the towing company and they assert you are a member, this is a civil issue. You'll need to resolve it with them." I was seeing red. I knew precisely who was behind this. Lacking Karen's phone number, I marched directly to her house. She has an absurdly tacky HOA president plaque beside her door, and I pounded on it. She answered the door clad in a silk robe, clutching a small, yapping dog, and she smiled. It was the smuggest, most infuriating smile I have ever witnessed. Before I could utter a word, she said, "May I help you, Mr. My last name?" I retorted, "You had my car towed from my driveway. You need to contact them and have it brought back immediately." Her smile only grew wider. "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Your vehicle was in direct violation. It hadn't been moved in 48 hours, which we define as the storage of an inoperable vehicle, and it was situated on HOA common property." I could only stare at her. "It is my driveway. My car is a 2019 Toyota. I drove it just yesterday. What on earth are you talking about?" And then she delivered this line, "Your driveway is connected to our private street. This makes the entire access route part of the HOA common area. Your property line concludes at your garage." This was a complete and utter fabrication. My property survey, which I possess from my closing, explicitly shows my property line goes all the way to the public street. It isn't even a private road, it's a city-maintained one, but that's a different matter. I told her as much, stating, "You are lying. That is my property. I am not part of your HOA. This is theft." She actually chuckled in my face. "Every resident in this neighborhood belongs to the HOA. You can't simply choose not to be a member. You've been behind on your dues since you first moved here. We have sent you the notifications." The notices she referred to were those passive-aggressive notes, which I still have, none of which ever mention dues. "In total, you owe $4,800 in overdue dues and fines. We placed a lien on your property last month." I felt the color drain from my face. "A lien?" She went on, "The tow was entirely legal, authorized by that lien. You can retrieve your car from the impound yard once you settle the towing and storage fees. And I highly recommend you visit the management office to set up a payment arrangement for your delinquency. If you fail to do so, the subsequent step is foreclosure." With that, she shut the door in my face. I contacted the towing company. They demanded $600 in cash, plus an additional $75 for each day of storage. I can't get my vehicle back without paying, and now I have no way to get to work. I checked the county clerk's website, and there it was, a $4,800 lien on my property filed by the HOA. Yet I'm not even a member. I have never been one. She is blatantly lying, claiming ownership of my driveway to tow my car from it. She has concocted a debt and filed a fraudulent lien. What is my course of action here? I'm in a state of panic. Should I pay the towing company just to retrieve my car and halt the escalating fees, and then pursue legal action against her? Do I require a lawyer at this very moment? Is it possible to have her arrested for auto theft? Can I perhaps sue her personally, or only the HOA? Yes, friends, please share in the comments what you would do in this scenario. And now, let's look at some advice from the folks on Reddit's r legal advice. Commenter number 1 stated, "Get a lawyer. Not tomorrow or next week, but today. You need a real estate attorney with experience in litigation, specifically one who has battled HOAs previously. This situation has gone far beyond a small claims matter. And for the record, do not pay the dues. Do not acknowledge this debt at all. Do not agree to any payment plan. Retrieve your car. That is the most pressing issue. Pay the towing fee and get a receipt. Be certain to write, paid under duress and protest, on the payment instrument. You will add this $600 to your lawsuit. And yes, it is frustrating, but the daily storage fees are structured to drain your finances, and you require your transportation. This isn't just a simple mistake on her part, this is malicious and potentially criminal." A second commenter added, "OP, contact your title insurance company, the one you paid for when you purchased the home. A fraudulent lien that complicates your title is precisely the reason title insurance exists. They may even assign a lawyer to you to contest the lien, as it is a direct challenge to the clear title they guaranteed." Commenter number 3 offered this is theft. Contact the police again. Go to the station in person and request to file a criminal complaint for felony auto theft and fraud against Karen as an individual. They will likely tell you it's a civil issue. Persist in escalating, ask for a supervisor, and use the phrases fraudulent lien and extortion. The vehicle was taken from your private property, the curtilage of your home, under false pretenses. This is not a civil disagreement, it is a criminal act. Another person advised, "Whatever you decide, do not speak with Karen or any representative from the HOA again. Not a single word. All future communication should be handled by your lawyer. Every time you interact with her, you run the risk of saying something she could manipulate. Record any interactions if she initiates them. And yes, everyone, once more, let me know your thoughts on how you would handle this situation in the comments. While you're there, please remember to like the video, as it helps me out immensely." Now, we have an update to the story. It reads as follows. Several months have passed, and I believed Reddit was owed an update, as you all were a great help. The matter has finally been put to rest. I wish to express my gratitude to everyone in the original thread. Your guidance was a lifeline when I was in a complete state of panic. As many of you recommended, my very first action was to secure legal counsel. My attorney, whom we'll call Law, sat and reviewed them. After about 5 minutes, he set the documents down, looked at me, and declared, "Your property is explicitly excluded from the HOA. The lien they filed is entirely fraudulent. This isn't just incorrect, it's illegal." He elaborated that in Texas, filing a fraudulent lien can result in serious penalties. He instructed me to go pay the $600 to retrieve my car, write "paid under protest" on the check, and obtain a receipt. I did so right away. It felt sickening to hand over that money, but I had to have my car back. The following day, Law began his work. He submitted an emergency motion to have the lien declared fraudulent and immediately expunged. He also initiated a substantial lawsuit against the Karen HOA, its management company, and Karen personally for slander of title, fraud, and wrongful conversion, the legal term for theft. He was not taking this lightly. He included the $600 towing fee, my 2 days of lost wages, his considerable attorney's fees, and a demand for punitive damages. At the same time, I followed the advice to contact my title insurance company, and they were also incensed. A fraudulent lien is an assault on their entire business model. They launched their own investigation and had their legal team coordinate with Law. It was a sight to behold. I effectively had 2 teams of aggressive lawyers advocating for me. Karen was served with the lawsuit, and about a week later, Law received a call from the HOA's attorney, a polished lawyer from a large firm. He was reportedly quite apologetic. "This is all a dreadful misunderstanding. A simple administrative mistake." He added, "My clients, the HOA, are willing to release the lien at once and, as a gesture of goodwill, will reimburse Mr. OP for the $600 towing fee." Law laughed. He told me, he responded, "An administrative error. Your client Karen personally confronted my client and informed him she was foreclosing on his home. That is no error. That is malice. My fees have already reached $8,000. We will see you in court." The HOA's lawyer quickly changed his tune. They had no desire for this to proceed to court, particularly since my attorney had made it clear he was suing Karen as an individual. If the HOA board had any sense, they would have cut Karen loose and settled, but they weren't smart. We found ourselves in a mediation session. Present were myself, Law, Karen, the HOA's lawyer, and a representative from the management company. Karen remained defiant. She produced a stack of photos and declared, "He is a nuisance. His lawn isn't edged. He leaves his garbage cans out, and his house doesn't conform. It's an eyesore, and it is lowering our property values. He ought to pay." Her own attorney looked as though he wished the ground would open up and swallow him. The mediator, a retired judge, simply peered at her over his glasses. Your personal aesthetic tastes are not legally enforceable. The only thing of consequence is this document. It demonstrates that his property is not, and has never been, a part of your association. You had no authority to tow his car, and you certainly had no authority to file a lien. You have committed fraud." When the mediator uttered the word fraud, Karen's face went pale. Her lawyer immediately interjected, "My client misspoke. She was operating based on outdated information." Law then chimed in, "Outdated information?" She confronted my client and attempted to extort $4,800 from him. We have even obtained a copy of the fraudulent documents she filed with the county. We are more than willing to present this evidence to a jury. Alternatively, the HOA can cover all my fees. My client's damages, and an extra $15,000 in punitive damages, and we can resolve this. The representative from the management company spoke for the first time. We were merely acting on the instructions of the board president. Law smiled at him. "And you, as a professional management company, had no obligation to confirm that the property was actually part of the association before filing a lien. You just blindly obeyed the directive of a volunteer board member. Your professional negligence is breathtaking." They took a break to confer. They returned 30 minutes later. The HOA consented to pay. They covered my lawyer's fees in full, which had risen to $12,000. They reimbursed my $600 towing expense, compensated me for my lost wages, and paid me $10,000 in damages. The lien was, of course, also removed. So, I received a legally binding, court-filed judgment affirming that my property is permanently and forever exempt from the HOA. I received a check for over $10,000, and I assumed it was all finished. But I was profoundly mistaken. Roughly a month after I deposited that wonderful check, another letter arrived. It was from the HOA once more. This time, it wasn't a fine, it was a notice of violation. My blood pressure shot up, but I continued reading. I was taken aback to see it was signed by Karen. I had heard from a neighbor that the board was in turmoil over the settlement, but the management company had apparently informed them that there were bylaws and procedures to adhere to for removing a president. It couldn't be done until the next quarterly meeting, which was still weeks away. Karen was still in her position, and she was furious. She couldn't get me with HOA rules, she had been thoroughly reprimanded for that. So, she had discovered a new tactic. My lawyer had found during his research that while my property was excluded, the developer had granted the HOA ownership of a useless 5-foot wide strip of grass running between the sidewalk and the street along the front of my property, a common area. My driveway, of course, must cross this 5-foot strip to reach the road. When my house was constructed, a permanent ingress-egress easement was recorded, permitting my property to cross, pass, and repass over that strip. Karen's new letter was a work of petty despotism. It stated, "Dear resident, while your property is not part of the HOA, your vehicle and property traverse HOA common land, the common strip, daily. Your easement agreement, which she helpfully included, mandates that you maintain the easement in good condition. A recent board inspection has determined your easement crossing to be in violation. The asphalt is cracked and stained. This is a breach of community standards." She was attempting to fine me for my own driveway again, just from a new angle. But then came the directive, and this is the part that will forever haunt her. The letter did not state that I was required to repair the easement. It said I had 10 days to remove all non-compliant personal property and improvements from the HOA common strip easement. Failure to comply will result in the HOA undertaking the removal at my expense and further legal action. She believed this was an ingenious way of saying, "Repave your driveway apron, or we will do it and send you an exorbitant bill." She wanted me to demolish my old asphalt and install nice new pavement that met community standards. I read the letter. I read the easement. And I read her demand once more. Remove all personal property and improvements from the easement. I called my lawyer. "Hey law," I said, "I've received another letter from Karen." He sighed. "What is it now?" "Well, she is demanding that I remove all personal property and improvements from the 5-foot easement strip. She means she wants me to repave it." Law was quiet for a second. Then I heard him let out a slow whistle. "Oh my. That is a very specific and very poorly phrased demand. She thinks she's saying repair it, but she wrote remove it." So I asked, should I just comply with her demand? "Not yet," Law replied, his voice suddenly sharp and professional. "This is undoubtedly a trap, but we're going to spring it correctly. Do nothing for now. I am going to draft a letter to the HOA's attorney. It will be sent via certified mail with a return receipt requested. It will state, 'We are in receipt of your demand dated X.' To be absolutely clear, are you instructing my client to remove all improvements from the easement? Yes or no? We will give them 48 hours to reply." "What if they reply and say it was a typo?" I inquired. "Then they appear foolish, and we have them on record for harassment yet again," Law said. "But they won't. Their lawyer will see the letter, then call Karen, who will scream, 'Yes, make him do it.' And the lawyer will either be too lazy or too intimidated by her to object. So, they will either not respond or confirm it. In either case, we prevail. Just wait." Those were the longest 2 days of my life. Then, Law called me back. I could detect the grin in his voice. "We're golden," he said. Their attorney sent a single-sentence email that reads, "The board's letter is clear. Please be advised that your client is to comply as directed." They walked straight into it. Have fun. So, I did. I contracted a concrete cutting and demolition firm. I provided them with very precise instructions. They arrived on a lovely Saturday morning, and Karen was, predictably, out for a walk with her yapping dog. I made a point of waving to her. The crew snapped two perfectly straight chalk lines. Line 1 was at the edge of the street where the HOA common strip started. Line 2 was exactly 5 feet up my driveway, where the HOA common strip ended and my actual property began. Then, they brought out the concrete saw and sliced clean, deep lines into the asphalt. Following that, they brought out the jackhammers. It was magnificent. It was incredibly loud. Half the neighborhood emerged to see what was going on. Karen came sprinting down the street, her yapping dog in her arms. "What are you doing? You're destroying HOA property. I'm calling the police." I simply smiled. I pulled the documents from my back pocket and held them up: Karen's letter, a copy of my lawyer's certified letter, and the printout of her lawyer's email confirming the demand. "I am merely complying with your written demand, Karen," I yelled over the noise of the jackhammers. "You instructed me to remove all personal property and improvements from the easement strip. My lawyer even had your lawyer confirm it, and he did. So, I am removing my asphalt. I wouldn't want to be non-compliant, would I? I'm just adhering to the rules. You're a fan of rules, aren't you? I have never in my entire life witnessed a human face cycle through so many different colors so rapidly." She stared at the documents. She stared at the crew, who were now loading chunks of my old driveway into a dump truck. She stared at the 5-foot-wide, 8-inch-deep trench of dirt and gravel that now utterly disconnected my driveway from the street. "I meant repair it," she shrieked. "Repair it." "Sorry," I shouted back, "your letter was very specific. Remove. Your lawyer confirmed it. I'm just following the rules." She began screaming about how I was a fool, how I had destroyed my own driveway. "Oh, I didn't ruin it," I said, my voice suddenly very composed. "I just followed your order. You, on the other hand, have now caused a problem." She stopped screaming. "What are you talking about?" "Well, Karen, I've removed my non-compliant improvements as you required. Now, this 5-foot strip is just HOA common land, and at present, it's a massive, impassable trench. My easement grants me the right to pass, and you, the HOA, are now impeding my legal easement. I cannot get my car out of my garage. You are illegally obstructing my access to my property." Her jaw simply hung open. So, I pressed on. "I'd like to thank you. I've been planning to have my driveway apron redone for some time, and now the HOA will have to foot the bill. If my access isn't restored promptly, well, my lawyer, Law, is becoming quite familiar with your case." My neighbors, all HOA members who had come out to watch, heard the entire exchange. They heard that Karen's personal crusade had already cost them over $12,000. And now they heard that she had, through her own foolishness, obligated the HOA to pay for my driveway. Karen fled back to her house. Law sent another email to the HOA's attorney. It was brief. Subject: obstruction of easement. Your client, through its president Karen, has created a hazardous situation and is now in violation of my client's recorded easement by rendering the HOA common strip impassable. My client was, of course, simply adhering to the board's written demand, which your office confirmed, to remove his property. You have 24 hours to restore my client's access by filling, compacting, and paving the 5-foot easement at the HOA's sole expense. Failure to comply will lead to an emergency injunction, and we will seek daily damages. The HOA's lawyer called Law within 10 minutes. I am told the words "unbelievable," "idiot," and "removed from the board" were used. The next morning, a different crew was at my house, an asphalt crew, paid for by the HOA. They laid and rolled a beautiful, brand new 5-foot-wide apron connecting my driveway to the street. It set the HOA back $3,500. The best part: I learned from some neighbors that at an emergency meeting of the homeowners, the board voted to oust Karen as president. The management company itself was also being reviewed. I hear from my neighbors that Karen is now the most despised person in the HOA. Her little vendetta cost her neighbors, via the HOA, a ton of money in fees, damages, and paving expenses. She is apparently trying to sell her house, but I suppose the property values aren't quite what they once were. I, conversely, have a check for over $10,000, all my fees covered, a court order proving I am not in the HOA, and a brand new driveway. All because of Karen. And yes, folks, if you're enjoying the HOA stories, please don't forget to hype the video and leave a comment, as it would be a tremendous help to me. The next one is a very amusing petty revenge story, entitled Rich Lady. So, I entered a hotel lobby once to find an older woman berating the young front desk clerk because her premium parking space had been taken. She was explaining that it had been guaranteed to her and her car club that they would have the prime parking spots because their car show was a major event in town. The kid at the front desk did his utmost to placate her but could do nothing about open, non-reserved spots being occupied. The angry woman then turned to me, expecting my agreement that she deserved her precious parking spaces. She said the situation needed to be rectified as she looked to me for validation. I replied, "It seems to me like you're feeling quite entitled." She stormed out of the office, and the clerk was able to get back to his work. And the next submission is a funny malicious compliance story titled, "Cannot Get Simple Office Accessories." I will bring my own. About 12 to 13 years ago, at my very first job, I was brought on as a network administrator at a recently formed state-owned company. Everything there was new, including the procedures for requesting office supplies. I was set up in an office with the barest minimum of accessories, so I listed several simple items to request from the support department, which at the time was just one guy but later grew into a department of 30. The items included basic things like facial tissues, a clothes hanger, it was winter, and I had no place for my jacket, a headset, pens in 3 colors, and a whiteboard with markers and an eraser. The support department guy glanced at the list and proceeded with excuses for each item, like facial tissues are not for non-managers. For pens, you can request only blue ones, once a week, if you return the previous empty one. A whiteboard and its accessories are also for managers. The same went for the clothes hanger, as if non-managers weren't permitted to own jackets. Regarding the headset, he just laughed, as if to say, "Welcome to a state-owned company, kid." I then understood the stark difference between the desks of non-managers and managers. It was these simple things. I genuinely didn't mind spending my own money, I was just curious why others hadn't done so already. So, the next day, I arrived with a beautifully designed box of facial tissues. A very nice short coat rack for beside my seat, quality pens of all colors, a light glass whiteboard with markers to hang behind my chair, my personal gaming headset, and an attractive plate filled with my hand-picked sweets. My desk area looked perfect. I truly mean it, especially when every other desk in the other rooms was a carbon copy of the same dreary setup. It looked even better than the manager's desks. By the end of that day, every manager and non-manager who entered my room had the same initial reaction. They would enviously stare at everything for several seconds and then ask me how the support department had given me these items. My response was, just the usual way, delivered with a hint of pride, adding, "The company's rules are written by misers. These are my own, and it cost me next to nothing to make my room look like this." The following day, the support department guy came to my room and told me, "Take all your fancy stuff home. I will provide you with the same as everyone else." I replied, "But I'm not a manager." He said, "We've changed the rules. Everyone deserves these items now." And the last one is a story from our malicious compliance, titled, "You Accuse Us of Time Theft and Being Unproductive. Then Look Forward to an Inbox Full of Unnecessary Reports." I work in premium customer service at a bank, where we assist the bank's most valuable clients. This role typically afforded us more autonomy because, unlike in conventional customer service, the emphasis is more on quality over quantity. However, since team leaders from the regular customer service department took charge of the project, our freedoms have been increasingly curtailed. We were accused of time theft for not logging out for the 2 minutes it takes to use the restroom. Suddenly, we were required to report any time we were not being productive. Many of us were threatened with warnings that could result in job loss. Even if we simply needed to consult with other colleagues about a customer's case, we had to notify them. Otherwise, we could be accused of unproductive behavior. Well, we complied. Perhaps a bit too enthusiastically. Every time we went to the bathroom, we reported it to our project managers via email. Every time we went to get a beverage, we reported it. Every time we took a break, we reported it. Every time we spoke to a colleague about a customer case, each of the 2 colleagues reported it independently to the project managers by email. Every single time we stepped away from our computers, for any reason, we reported it by email to the project managers' inboxes. After a short while, the project managers' mailboxes were so inundated that even crucial emails were being missed because there were simply too many. The project managers were completely swamped. Shortly thereafter, the rules were rescinded. And with that, folks, thank you for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.